Have you ever wondered if being kind can become a burden? We hear a lot about how kindness is a good thing, but have you ever felt like your kindness was being used against you, creating an imbalance in your life? Have you ever wondered if you are helping yourself disappear? Kindness is often seen as weak, and it's not given much value in the business of human relationships. There is a thin line between the virtue of kindness and the vice of naivete, but social norms blur this line. Kindness is a good trait, and this video doesn't try to disprove it. Instead, it looks at being too kind, which is often praised, but, as we'll see, is a secret way to hurt yourself. Let us begin this journey of reflection, where we will look at 7 timeless problems with being too kind through the lens of Stoicism. Through Stoicism, we will clearly see what happens when kindness goes too far, and we will learn how to balance kindness and self-respect to live a peaceful and meaningful life. Number 1. Poor boundaries. Setting bad limits can have a big effect on our lives, causing stress, anger, and bad relationships. When we set limits, we do so to protect our personal space, feelings, and beliefs. It's hard to stay true to yourself and handle your relationships well when these boundaries are weak or not there at all. How to understand. How important boundaries are boundaries tell us what is and isn't okay to do when we're with other people. They keep people from taking advantage of us, which is good for our mental and emotional health. We can keep our sense of identity and independence when there are clear limits around us. Worst signs of bad boundaries. Trouble saying no, even when you're stressed or uncomfortable, feeling responsible for the feelings and happiness of other people, getting angry or feeling cheated on a lot in relationships, you're taking on too much and ignoring your own needs to make other people happy. Bad boundaries and what happens next. Taking on too much duty has led to more stress and burnout, codependency or imbalance in relationships that aren't good. Feeling low on self-worth and confidence because your wants and needs are not being met. Being emotionally worn out and angry because you feel ignored and undervalued. How to set limits that are healthy. Self-awareness means knowing your own wants, needs, and boundaries. Learn about the things that bother or stress you out. Clear communication. Be firm with others about your limits. You can talk about your wants and feelings without blaming others by using I statements. Being consistent means that you should always stick to your rules, even when it's hard. This lets people know your limits and accept them. Take care of yourself by making time for things that make you feel good and calm down. This helps you remember how important your limits are. How to keep your boundaries in real life. To get better at saying no, start with small, easy-to-handle situations and work your way up to harder ones. Don't forget that saying no is an important part of taking care of yourself. Get help. Surround yourself with people who respect your limits and want you to grow. Stay away from people who constantly break your rules. Think and make changes. Check your limits often and change them as needed. When things in your life change, you may have to rethink what is okay. Stay firm. Be ready for people to push back. Be firm and keep in mind how important your limits are to your health. Get educated. Read books, go to workshops, or see a therapist to learn more about setting limits. Getting information and tools can help you set and stick to healthy limits. You can protect your mental and emotional health and build stronger, healthier relationships if you understand and use these tactics. Setting and sticking to limits is important for living a healthy and satisfying life. Being kind, sensitive, always willing to help, polite, and thoughtful are all good traits in theory, but their dark side can be very dangerous. If we are rewarded for being sensitive and helpful, we may feel trapped when we need to say no or set limits for our time and energy without knowing how to push back. This is why many professionals are overworked, frustrated and resentful with their full inboxes, unfinished to-do lists, and newly accepted commitments. Stoic philosophy says that people who are kind do not always know how to set limits. The need to be seen as kind and helpful can trap them in a cycle of overcommitment and self-sacrifice. Setting limits is directly linked to having self-control and understanding your limits. People who are too kind often ignore their own needs to meet the needs of others, which wears them out mentally and physically. Setting limits takes planning, practice, and dedication. It's not something that comes naturally. For example, if you've built your reputation on being kind, saying no to helping someone or going to an event won't hurt your reputation. Might not. Want to do it because they're afraid of being rude or hurting connections. The principle of self-sufficiency stresses how important it is to stay independent and not count too much on other people's approval or acceptance. This idea can be used to explain the idea of setting limits. By always being kind and willing to help, we may teach others that we are always available, which can lead to higher demands and expectations. In practice, setting boundaries can be hard for people who have built their identity on kindness because they don't want to be seen as selfish or unkind, which can be very stressful. But Stoic philosophy tells us to focus on what we can control and let go of the need for external validation. By learning to say no and setting clear boundaries, we can protect our time and energy, which will lead to more lasting and effective acts of kindness. Setting boundaries can also make our relationships better. When we set clear expectations and communicate our limits honestly, we create an environment of mutual respect and understanding. In conclusion, the value of being too kind often shows up as a lack of boundaries, which can lead to burnout and resentment. By setting clear boundaries, we can keep being kind and willing to help in a healthy way that lasts. This balance is good for the individual and makes it easier to make a positive contribution to our communities and relationships. Number 2, gender inequality. Inequality between men and women is still a big problem in many places around the world. Even though there has been progress in the last few decades, there are still differences between men and women in schooling, employment, healthcare, and political representation, among other areas. It is important to understand and deal with gender imbalance if we want to make the world more fair and just. This lesson looks at the main aspects of gender inequality, showing how it affects people and offering effective ways to fight it. How to understand gender inequality. When people are treated or thought of differently because of their gender, this is called gender imbalance. It shows up as different levels of social, economic, and political inequality. Historical background. Throughout history, many societies have been patriarchal, which has made things harder for women and gender minorities. Effects of unequal gender pay. Economic disparities. Women often face pay gaps, fewer chances to move up in their careers, and higher rates of poverty. Health effects. Inequality between men and women has an impact on health results, with women having less access to health care and reproductive rights and being more likely to be a victim of violence. Effects on society and the mind. Discrimination and gender norms can lower self-esteem, cause mental health problems, and stop people from growing personally and professionally. Schooling and unequal treatment of women. Getting to school. Girls are less likely than boys to go to school in many parts of the world. This difference is caused by things like cultural norms, economic obstacles, and worries about safety. Attainment in education. Girls may face bias and fewer opportunities in some areas, especially in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, even when they can go to school. Inequality between men and women at work, representation and leadership. In many fields, women are underrepresented in leadership and decision-making jobs. Bias based on gender and built-in hurdles often stop them from moving up. Work-life balance. Women do more unpaid care work and housework than men do, which can slow their job growth and make it harder for them to become financially independent. Taking action on gender inequality policy and legislation. Putting in place and following the rules of laws that support fair pay for men and women, like anti-discrimination laws, parental leave policies, and childcare policies. Education and awareness. Encouraging gender-sensitive learning and making people more aware of how gender inequality affects people can help break down assumptions and promote practices that are welcoming to everyone. Empowering women and girls. One way to help reduce gender inequality is to support programs that give women and girls more power through education, mentoring, and job chances. Male allyship. Getting boys and men to fight against gender inequality as friends is important for changing the system as a whole. This means fighting toxic manhood and working for equal rights for women at all levels. To fix the problem of gender imbalance, we need to change policies, teach people, and change the way we think about gender. By learning about the causes and effects of differences between men and women, society can work to make the world a better place for everyone, no matter what gender. Have you ever thought about why being too kind can hurt us, especially women? In Stoic philosophy, qualities like wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance are highly valued. The idea of being too kind, especially when it comes to gender imbalance, needs to be carefully looked at and thought through. Women are taught from a young age to always be kind, to put others' needs above their own, and to keep a good attitude. These expectations become internalized norms that guide their behavior throughout their lives. Girls are taught to ask nicely, to be kind, and to put others' comfort above their own wants and needs. Over time, these expectations shape their identity and behavior, making deviations from this norm seem rude and uncomfortable. Men, on the other hand, often have more freedom to set boundaries. Share your thoughts and trust in their efforts. Men who are assertive, blunt, or even aggressive are often praised for their leadership, while women who act in similar ways are seen as rude or inappropriate. This double standard is deeply rooted in society and culture, making it so that men are seen as strong and assertive, and women are called tough or difficult. When we put too much value on kindness, we lose sight of how these standards are being applied unequally. This kind of blindness makes workplaces where guys get more praise and have more chances to move up. Women's contributions, on the other hand, are often ignored or undervalued. For example, assertiveness is often confused for aggression, and confidence is seen as arrogance. This gendered view distorts how we think about competence and leadership, which keeps inequality going. Being too kind has a cost that isn't just personal. It's a structural problem that affects the whole social structure. It limits potential, slows down progress, and makes a cycle of inequality that is hard to break. To solve this problem, we need to promote a more balanced view of kindness that lets people of all genders express their limits, opinions, and sense of self-worth. Adopting Stoicism means trying to find wisdom in recognizing these differences. By bravely questioning the status quo, treating everyone equally and fairly, and finding a balance between being kind and assertive, we can make places where both men and women can thrive, where being kind is not a gendered expectation, but a common human virtue, and where the high cost of being too kind is no longer a barrier to equality and progress. Leave a comment if you start to see the value in everyone's efforts, no matter what gender they are, and make a place where kindness, fairness, and equality are all respected. Number 3. Accidental discrimination. Maria, a young and talented engineer, grew up in a family that valued hard work, humility, and respect, but not the typical social behaviors of middle-class families. When Maria started working at a prestigious technology company, she quickly realized that her co-workers valued behaviors like making eye contact during conversations and small talk about weekend activities, which made her feel awkward and out of place, even though she was good at her job and had great ideas. Maria was left out of important projects and social events. Her co-workers, who meant well, made snap decisions about her rel liability and engagement based on their cultural norms. They thought her lack of eye contact meant she wasn't interested or was evading questions, and they thought her refusal to make small talk meant she was cold. These misunderstandings put Maria on the outside and didn't value what she brought to the table. This conformity not only stopped new ideas from happening, but it also made big blind spots that could be bad for long-term performance. When we unintentionally support certain cultural behaviors, we shut down different points of view and limit our collective potential. In Maria's case, her unique way of solving problems and new perspectives were missed, which meant that we lost valuable insight that could have driven innovation. The story of David, a software engineer who has autism, is also a great example. Although David was a valuable member of the team because of his great coding skills and attention to detail, he had trouble maintaining eye contact and his straightforward communication style, which led to misunderstandings. His co-workers saw him as unfriendly and unwilling to work with them, which led to an environment where David's contributions were undervalued and his potential was untapped in the teachings of Stoicism. Justice is a basic virtue that tells us to treat everyone equally and kindly, recognizing their worth on their own. This powerful message tells us to look past our prejudices and appreciate the variety of creation. By examining and challenging our cultural biases, we can make a more welcoming space where everyone, no matter their background, has the chance to thrive. To do this, we must be self-aware and willing to question the norms we take for granted. It means valuing the unique contributions of each person and promoting a culture of genuine respect and understanding. To sum up, the cost of being too nice is unchecked adherence to cultural norms, which can lead to unintentional discrimination. By following Stoic principles, we can work towards a more just and equal society. Comment 3 starts by recognizing and appreciating the diversity of the human experience, making sure that our pursuit of kindness does not come at the expense of fairness and inclusion. Neglectful actions or beliefs that cause unfair treatment of people because of their race, gender, age, or disability are called accidental discrimination. This kind of inequality is usually subtle and unintentional, which makes it hard to spot and deal with. It can happen in many places, like schools, jobs, and social gatherings. To promote fairness and inclusion, it is important to understand and reduce accidental prejudice. Learn about implicit bias. Unconscious views or stereotypes that affect how we act are called implicit biases. Even if we don't mean to be unfair to others, these biases can make us do it by mistake. We can do things to fight our unconscious biases once we are aware of them. Spread language that is inclusive. Our language has a big impact on how we think and talk to each other. Accidental discrimination can be avoided by using language that includes everyone and staying away from words or sentences that could offend or push some groups to the edges. Some examples of more open language are using partner instead of husband or wife to talk about a person's relationship. Set up and follow fair rules and procedures. Fairness and justice should be emphasized in the rules that organizations make and follow. This includes making sure that there is no bias in the way people are hired, how they are promoted, and the rules that everyone follows at work. Reviewing and updating these policies on a regular basis can help find and stop biased actions that aren't meant to be discriminatory. Encourage different points of view. Creating a space where different points of view are valued and welcomed can help reduce discrimination that happens by mistake. More inclusive decision-making can happen by encouraging open dialogue and actively seeking feedback from people with a range of backgrounds and experiences. Give training and education. People can spot and deal with unconscious bias if they get regular training on diversity, fairness, and inclusion. Workshops, seminars, and training materials can help people become more aware of their unconscious biases and give them ways to promote inclusion. It is possible to make places more welcoming and fair for everyone if we understand and deal with accidental discrimination. To do this, you have to keep working at it and be dedicated to self-awareness, education, and using fair methods. Number 4. Lack of progress. People who have big, bold ideas that could change the world, businesses or society aren't usually thought of as nice. Any good idea will upset or leave out some people along the way, and if this prospect doesn't know much about your work, it won't have much of an effect. Jesus didn't think twice about telling the truth, even if it made a lot of people uncomfortable. He went against the religious and social norms of his time, and it was this unwavering commitment that led to big changes. Being kind is because bland kindness is afraid of offending someone or leaving them behind. It's not specific or unique enough to be useful to anyone. We waste time and energy making sure we've covered all the bases, but we don't make a strong impression on the customers, friends, or employees we most want to work with or engage with when people don't speak up in meetings or point out our flaws and assumptions to seem kind. Our work quality goes down, and our chances of success go down. Go down consensus is more important than agreement, but to get there, people must be honest. Jesus told us that the truth would set us free, but the truth can hurt and make us feel bad sometimes. One of the most common and discouraging barriers is not wanting to focus or make trade-offs because we're afraid of focusing on the areas where we can have the most impact. We get stuck in daily operations, spreading our efforts too thinly across too many projects, marketing to too many groups of customers, and juggling too many tasks while our goals get further away. Not having a clear plan isn't nice. Change that. Changes everything isn't nice. Kindness isn't a great goal for any plan or effort, so why keep it as a value? It's not just our own fault that we don't make progress when we're too nice. It's a systemic one that kills potential, slows progress, and keeps things stuck in a loop of inefficiency and stagnation. In Stoic philosophy, we learn to face the truth with courage, have a clear idea of what needs to be done, and not be afraid to make the changes that are needed to be done, and not be afraid to make the changes that are needed. We learn to live with sincerity, and determination, while still maintaining virtue and justice. We must remember that just as Jesus didn't hesitate to tell the truth and call out what was wrong, we must also be brave and stand up for what is right, even if it's hard or uncomfortable. In conclusion, the lack of progress caused by too much kindness is a complicated problem that can be solved by using Stoic philosophy. To make real progress, we must learn to balance kindness with determination, making sure that our goodwill doesn't get in the way of growth and progress. If you liked what this video was about, please leave a comment. 4. Your feedback and thanks will encourage us to make even more videos in the future. Number 5. Safety risks. Everyday life depends on being safe, whether you're at home, at work, or in public places. To avoid crashes, injuries, and even death, it's important to understand and reduce safety risks. Safety risks can come from many places, such as environmental hazards, human error, and broken tools. Being aware of these risks, teaching others about them, and taking effective steps are all needed to deal with them. Figure out possible dangers. Do thorough risk assessments in a variety of settings to find possible dangers. This means being able to spot physical dangers like wet floors, broken electrical wiring, or sharp items that are out in the open. To lower safety risks, the first thing that needs to be done is regular checks and finding of hazards. Take steps to avoid problems. Once dangers have been found, steps should be taken to lower the chance of accidents. This could mean putting in safety gear like smoke alarms and fire extinguishers, training workers properly, and making sure that safety rules are followed. Taking preventative steps is very important for making the world a better place. Encourage a culture of safety. It is very important to build a culture of safety in a group or neighborhood. This means teaching people how important safety is, getting them to report dangers, and creating a space where everyone is responsible for safety. Accidents and injuries can happen a lot less often if there is a strong safety mindset. Being ready for emergencies. An important part of safety risk management is being ready for situations. Make sure everyone knows what to do in case of an emergency, practice drills, and keep emergency action plans up to date. Being ready for emergencies can save lives and limit damage when they happen. Always getting better. Safety risk management is an ongoing process that needs to be made better all the time. Safety rules, processes, and training programs should be looked over and updated on a regular basis. To make things safer, learn from past accidents and close calls. You can make the place safer for everyone by always trying to get better. To keep people safe and prevent accidents in any place, it's important to understand and deal with safety risks. You can greatly lower safety risks by finding possible dangers, putting in place protective measures, encouraging a safety culture, getting ready for situations, and always making safety practices better. Stressing safety in all areas of life not only keeps people safe, but it also makes the world a safer and more productive place to live. Imagine that you are a lighthouse that stands firm on the shore and shines brightly to help ships get through the storm and avoid dangerous rocks. Your light is goodwill. Lighthouses help people find their way safely, but if they aren't properly maintained, or if you use up too much energy without recharging, your light will gradually dim and you may become damaged, losing the ability to protect yourself and others. Being too kind can also put you at risk. When we open our hearts too much without thinking about the risks, we leave ourselves open to being exploited and put yourself in dangerous situations. Stoic thought says, wisdom and prudence are important traits that help us be responsible and keep ourselves safe. Keeping a balance between kindness and safety not only keeps us safe, but also lets us keep helping others in a way that is effective and lasts. Being wise and careful are good traits. These virtues help us act in ways that keep others safe and healthy. Threatening these principles with too much kindness can leave us open to abuse and harm. If we open our hearts too much to others without thinking about the risks, we may find ourselves in dangerous situations. Imagine Sarah is a dedicated volunteer at her church. Her faith in God and Jesus' lessons move her to help people who are in need. Sarah is known for being very kind and ready to help anyone who needs it. She spends a lot of time helping the homeless, volunteering at food banks, and listening to anyone who wants to talk. Sarah's goals are good because she loves God and wants to serve Him, but her kindness started to wear her down. She felt mentally and physically tired. Sarah met a man one night after a long day of helping who asked her to take him somewhere far away. She agreed, even though it made her feel bad, because she didn't want to be rude on the trip. When the man got angry, Sarah was put in a dangerous situation. She barely avoided harm, but the experience left her shaken and making her question her actions from a calm point of view. Sarah was too kind and forgot to look out for her own safety. Stoic philosophy tells us to be wise and careful in what we do. While it's good to help others, it's also important to make sure our actions don't put us in unnecessary danger. One important thing that Sarah's story shows is that being kind shouldn't put our safety at risk. Stoic philosophy tells us to look at things objectively and make choices that are good for us. Just because we know this doesn't mean we become cold or mean. Instead, we should be kind within the limits of reason and knowledge to find balance. Being aware of our limits and setting limits is important. Being kind doesn't mean we have to do everything someone asks of us or put ourselves in danger. We can be kind and helpful without putting our own safety at risk. In Sarah's case, she could have helped the man in a different way, like by calling a cab or finding someone else who could help. By doing this, she would have been kind without putting her own safety at risk. This method fits with the Stoic principle of acting with knowledge and forethought. Being too kind, even to someone who means well, can put you in great danger. By following the Stoic principles and finding a balance between compassion and caution, we can keep ourselves safe while still being kind and helpful by setting limits and making smart choices. In addition to keeping ourselves safe, we should also make sure that we can keep helping others without putting ourselves in danger. Remember that true kindness includes taking care of yourself. Comment 5. Set personal boundaries and keep yourself safe. Number 6. Emotional repression. It can be hard to voice disagreements or conflicts when cultural norms and personal programming tell us to always be nice and agreeable. Trying to keep the peace at all costs can lead to a dangerous pattern of emotional suppression where hurt feelings or boundary violations are not talked about openly. At first, this denial may not seem harmful, but it can have serious and negative effects on our mental and physical health, as well as our relationships. When we feel hurt or our boundaries have been broken, we basically have two options: to show our feelings or to keep them inside. Unfortunately, a lot of people choose to fester inside, either because they're afraid of being confronted or because they deeply believe that expressing negative emotions is wrong. But these repressed emotions don't just go away. Our bodies keep track of them, and over time, unresolved dissatisfaction shows up as stress, sadness, anxiety, or loneliness. As a result, this emotional response can cause serious psychological and physical problems that hurt our overall health. For example, if someone constantly hides their dissatisfaction at work to avoid conflict with co-workers or superiors, over time, this person may feel more stressed and alone because they aren't expressing their true emotions. They can't be honest with each other at work, which hurts their mental health and the ties they have with others. Co-workers may see this person as polite but distant, never really connecting on a deeper level. This makes the workplace less collaborative and trustworthy, which is bad for both personal and professional growth. Stoicism tells us to be brave and smart in our interactions with others. Being brave means being able to say what we really feel, even if it's scary or uncomfortable. Being smart means knowing when and how to say these things in a way that is constructive and respectful. By following these Stoic principles, we can break the cycle of emotional suppression and build healthier, more fulfilling relationships. In short, we can't overstate how much it costs to be too kind and how it hurts our health to hold back our emotions. Quality of life and relationships in general. Emotional honesty can be hard to achieve, but it's important for your own health and growth. Comment 6. Have the courage to be honest with yourself and feel the transformative power of expressing real feelings. Number 7. Overcommitment. People who are always trying to be too nice often run into the problem of overcommitment, which has bad results. We may unintentionally create a cycle of disappointment and stress when we say yes to too many things. When we overcommit, we put short-term harmony ahead of long-term honesty and dependability. By agreeing to do more than we can handle, we put ourselves in a position to fail and disappoint others when we can't keep our promises. This not only ruins the work of those who depend on us, but it also hurts our reputation as someone who is inconsistent, which breaks down trust and weakens relationships over time. This makes us less productive and hurts both personal and professional relationships. Stoic thought has useful ideas for dealing with too much commitment. Living in balance with nature, which means knowing and accepting our own limits, is one of the main ideas behind Stoicism. Stoic thinkers stress how important it is to know ourselves and be honest about what we can and cannot do. When we do this, our actions are in line with our real abilities. Stoic ideas can help you avoid the problems that come with being too committed. Take the following steps into account. First, spend some time every day thinking about your commitments and whether they are in line with your goals and skills. Know what you can and can't do, and be honest with yourself about what you can handle. Find the most important and impactful T jobs and commitments and put them in order of importance. Third, make sure you can give each job your full attention by focusing on quality over quantity and communicating clearly. Be honest and clear with other people about what you can do. It's better to say no right away than to agree to do something and then not be able to follow through. Build connections based on trust and respect. Fourth, make smart choices. Before you commit to something new, think about how it might affect your current duties. Carefully weigh the pros and cons to make sure you can handle taking on more tasks. By following these Stoic habits, we can avoid the bad effects of overcommitting. Being honest about our limits from the start is much better than rushing to meet goals or running away in shame and fear. Keeping will be easier if we set limits and focus on what's important. Being honest helps people trust you, which will boost your happiness and productivity. We just talked about the bad things that can happen when you're too nice and how Stoic thought can help us keep our cool. Remember that being kind is important, but it shouldn't turn you into a loser. Use the principles of Stoicism to set limits. Guard your feelings and pay attention to what's important. What do you think about kind consequences? Please click the like button, share this movie with your friends, and leave a comment if you found it helpful. Please say what you think. Please remember to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos about how Stoic philosophy can help you live a more meaningful and balanced life. Thanks for watching, and please keep watching the videos shown at the end of this one. We're always here to inspire you and teach you new things. See you in the next videos.